Thank you very much, Brian. Once again, this is Rocco Passafuime in for Halftime Howie. I'm broadcasting with the beach. We have to get a little somber. I know that most of the time we were all here having a great time and having fun, but I would be remiss if we did not touch on this, because this was something that was very important that happened this past week. And yes, I'm talking about the 14th anniversary of 9/11. The words to describe, this is just intense for me, because the fact that this happened 14 years ago is just incredible. The fact that terrorists would come in and destroy a giant building like the World Trade Center and have thousands of people die, basically, whether it be people that were in the building, people like that tried to rescue people in the building, like our wonderful New York Police Department and New York Fire Department. It's just the memory of that still is a tough one, all these years later, definitely. And my heart goes out to everybody who lost loved ones in that attack, whether family and people that worked with them, worked with the cops and worked with the fire department and worked with EMT and all that. So I think the thing about 9/11 for me personally, if I can touch on this, is that it's hard not to, it's tough to think about, because on one aspect, there's a little bit of guilt that comes with it for me, because I actually learned that my biological father, was supposed to have a meeting on that day, and he ended up not being able to go. So there was the possibility that could have happened to my own father. So that's something that just devastates me every time I think about it. And it does make me feel guilty, because there are people who have lost loved ones, and it's just the magnitude of that is just something I would not wish on anybody. It's very tough to deal with the fact that people were taken so instantaneously like that. And the other aspect of it is that my stepfather, who is retired New York Police Department, he actually was still a private investigator at the time, and he would often go back to Ground Zero to assess things like what they were doing with trying to rescue the survivors. And it was nerve-wracking for all of us, because there's all these stories that people were dying from breathing into the asbestos air from the wreckage, and so people were continuing to die from this. And I'm very grateful that not only my father never was in the World Trade Center at the time, but the fact that my stepfather never succumbed to any health problems related to that incident. I think the thing that's most important about 9/11 that most people don't really touch on, is the fact that unfortunately there is a dark side to everything that happens with it. And I'm mainly talking about the fact that people in our country who, before I say any more, the fact is that one of the central tenets of our country is freedom of religion, that we can all have the freedom to practice our religion. Unfortunately, for those of us in America that are Muslim, they've had a really hard time dealing with September 11th, because they've had to deal with people that have lumped them in with the terrorists and with foreigners that have meant to do harm to us. And I saw a thing on Twitter. It was they did a hashtag on the day of September 11th, and it really reeled me. This thing called #AfterSeptember11, and it was all these stories of people that were Muslim Americans or Arab descent, or people that weren't even either. You know what I mean? Like people, telling all these horror stories that they got picked on, they got abused, they got their families, all this kind of stuff. And it just begs to be remembered this is not what America is all about, not to me. We need to respect our brothers and sisters, regardless of, everybody in this country that is of good intent in this country, that want to do well and live their lives. We have to realize that we are all Americans, that, there's no such thing, as there's no monopoly over what makes an American. We all live here. We're the most diverse country in the world, and that always has to be respected. And the fact that I see people that, that are my fellow Americans, and I know quite a few of them. The fact that they've had to deal with this is just immense, and it's just very, very heartbreaking me. And I think that this is just should not be in America. This should, I mean, people say it all the time that this should not be going on in America. But I think to risk getting off the point, the fact is that I should reiterate that everybody that lost their lives on 9/11, will always honor them, because they made the ultimate sacrifice, risking their very lives. They, some of them even perhaps knowing what they were going to be in for the greater good. And I think that really showed the best of this country. And I would be remiss if I did not wave my hat off to all of them. And I feel like that's what 9/11 should always be about. It should always be about the people, that helped and, brought us all together as a people. So I thank you very much for that. And moving right along.